The story of the Verenigde Oost-Indische Compagnie, or the Dutch East India Company, VOC, is a pivotal chapter in the history of Indonesia. Established in 1602, the VOC was the first multinational corporation in the world and played a crucial role in the European colonization of Southeast Asia. This narrative explores the VOC's arrival in Indonesia, its establishment of colonial rule, its adaptation to local cultures, and the eventual decline that led to its exit from the archipelago. In the early 17th century, the spice trade was a highly lucrative business, attracting European powers eager to capitalize on the demand for spices like nutmeg, cloves, and mace. The Portuguese had initially dominated this trade, but their grip was loosening. The Dutch, motivated by profit and the desire to establish a foothold in Asia, formed the VOC. In 1602, the VOC sent its first expedition to the East Indies, led by Admiral Hendrik Brouwer. The fleet arrived in the Indonesian archipelago, specifically in the Spice Islands, Maluku Islands, where the prized spices were grown. The Dutch quickly recognized the strategic importance of these islands and sought to establish control over the trade routes. Hendrik Brouwer was born between March 24th and July 18th, 1581, in Valdivia, Chile. He was the 8th Governor-General of the Dutch East Indies. He ruled between the years 1632 to 1636. Admiral Brouwer, known for his keen understanding of the seas and trade routes, was determined to establish a foothold in the lucrative spice trade. He understood that the spices of the East, nutmeg, cloves, and pepper, were worth their weight in gold, and he was ready to navigate the treacherous waters to secure them for the VOC. The main goal of the VOC was to secure control over the abundant spice trade in Southeast Asia. This includes the production, transportation, and marketing of spices such as cloves, cinnamon, and pepper. Competing with other European nations, especially Spain and Portugal, and governing as representatives of the Dutch government in the East Indies. The VOC's approach to establishing colonial rule was multifaceted. Initially, they engaged in trade with local rulers, offering them protection in exchange for exclusive trading rights. The VOC built fortified trading posts, known as factories, in key locations such as Batavia, modern-day Jakarta, Ambon, and the Moluccas. Batavia became the headquarters of the VOC in Asia, serving as a vital hub for trade and administration. The Dutch employed a combination of diplomacy and military force to secure their interests. They formed alliances with certain local sultans while simultaneously waging wars against others who resisted their control. The capture of Malacca in 1641 from the Portuguese was a significant victory that further solidified Dutch dominance in the region. Despite their initial military might, the VOC soon realized that to maintain control over such a diverse and culturally rich archipelago, they needed to adapt to local customs and practices. The Dutch learned the local languages, engaged in intermarriage with local elites, and adopted some aspects of Indonesian culture. The VOC also implemented a system of cultivation that involved local farmers. They introduced cash crops, such as sugar and coffee, which were in high demand in Europe. This system allowed the VOC to profit immensely, while also integrating local agricultural practices into their economic model. Moreover, the Dutch established a complex relationship with the local population. They often relied on local intermediaries to facilitate trade and governance, which helped them navigate the intricate social and political landscapes of the various Indonesian kingdoms. This strategy of indirect rule allowed the VOC to maintain a semblance of local autonomy while ensuring their economic interests were protected. As the VOC established its foothold in Indonesia, the once thriving trade routes became a battleground for power and control. The Dutch East India Company, driven by profit, sought to monopolize the lucrative spice trade, imposing their will on the local population. Under the guise of trade, the VOC implemented harsh policies that oppressed the indigenous people. They dictated prices, controlled the supply of spices, and enforced strict regulations that stifled local commerce. local farmers and fishermen, once free to trade as they pleased, found themselves at the mercy of the VOC's demands. The company's agents dictated terms, often paying meager prices for their hard-earned produce, while the profits flowed back to Europe. Despite the oppression, the spirit of resistance began to grow among the Indonesian people. They knew that their land and livelihoods were at stake, and whispers of rebellion started to circulate. However, the VOC's success was not to last. Several factors contributed to its decline, leading to its eventual collapse in the late 18th century. 1. Corruption and mismanagement. The VOC was plagued by internal corruption and mismanagement. As profits soared, so did the greed of its officials. Many were more interested in personal gain than the company's welfare, leading to inefficiencies and financial losses. 2. Competition and conflict. The rise of other European powers, particularly the British and the French, intensified competition in the region. The British East India Company began to challenge Dutch dominance, leading to conflicts that drained resources and attention. 3. Local resistance. As the VOC's control tightened, local resistance grew. Various Indonesian kingdoms began to unite against Dutch rule, leading to uprisings and conflicts. The Makassar War, 1666 to 1669, led by Sultan Hasanuddin, the valiant leader of the Kesultanan Goa, was one of the most significant rebellions against Dutch authority, showcasing the growing discontent among the local population. 4. Economic changes. The global economic landscape was shifting. The demand for spices began to decline as new sources were discovered, and the VOC's reliance on a single commodity trade became a liability. The company struggled to adapt to these changes, leading to further financial strain. By the late 18th century, the VOC was in dire straits. In 1799, after years of financial losses and mounting debts, the Dutch government dissolved the company. The VOC's assets were taken over by the Dutch state, marking the end of its era as a powerful colonial entity. The transition from the VOC to direct Dutch colonial rule was not immediate. The Dutch government sought to stabilize the region and maintain control over the lucrative trade routes. This led to the establishment of the Dutch East Indies, a formal colonial administration that would last until the mid-20th century. The history of the VOC in Indonesia is a complex tale of ambition, adaptation, and eventual decline. The Dutch East India Company played a crucial role in shaping the economic and political landscape of the Indonesian archipelago. While they initially succeeded through a combination of military might and cultural adaptation, internal corruption, external competition, and local resistance ultimately led to their downfall. Today, the legacy of the VOC remains a significant part of Indonesia's history, serving as a reminder of the complexities of colonialism and the enduring impact of foreign powers on the archipelago. The story of the VOC is not just a tale of conquest. It is a narrative of cultural exchange, resilience, and the intricate dance between power and adaptation in a diverse and dynamic region.